my name's Lisa Wilson. This is my presentation on sounds in horror games. Okay, the horror movement between intrinsic and extrinsic sound is intrinsic is in-game music, like coming from a piano or a radio. Extrinsic is coming from an external source. Each of these can be used to create a low level of tension in horror games. Right, rhythm is the most common use in video games. It's a pattern or emphasis of stress that occurs in music. This is more common in Resident Evil games as the use of grand orchestra to try and symbolise when a boss or a point of fear is about to happen. They use this as a change in tempo and pitch as this prepares the audience for something that's about to happen and makes them nervous before they actually see anything on the screen. A melody is the main part of a composition made up of successful pitches. However, in horror games, more often than not, the purpose of extrinsic sound is not to use successful pitches to create a melody. This is in games like Silent Hill, and that they use more industrial sounds, so it sounds like in-game sounds at the same time, more like scratching and banging on walls. This is called dissonance, and this isn't not meant to be easy to listen to, but create fear and tension. The disharmonic use of sound in games such as Silent Hill has a profound effect upon the gameplay. This is cluttered, creating sounds to mimic a game. Plus, by using dissonic chords, this makes the music sound jerky and otherworldly. For example, when you play the Silent Hill games and you go into the other world, the music gets larger and more industrial, which makes you more on edge because you can't hear what's approaching you from the distance. This affects the audience as the mood of the music changes. This induces fear by using harsher pitches and chords. Silent Hill. The music for Silent Hill was composed by Akira Yamaoka, who designed the music to follow the storyline and not follow game triggers. For example, when you get to a certain point in the game, the music will change instead of just having an ongoing soundtrack. This lets you know how the players feel and that type of thing. When there's an awkward moment or an upset, the music will change to a more sadder melody. The music can be emotive to show the protagonist's feelings towards the situation, whereas the music will change when entering Silent Hill to become louder and more industrial, this informing the user of the dangers that they face in the upcoming environment. Instead of using orchestral music such as piano and string, he creates a soundtrack to industrial music, this creating a really dark ambient soundtrack. This creates a psychological effect using extrinsic sound. Within the soundtrack, the game, there is only two scenes that aren't entirely electronic. This is the opening credits and the final boss, which are both leitmotifs in the Silent Hill series. This meaning that they're used and every game audience should recognise the Silent Hill music and know that it's linked back to the game. Real-time effects unique to Silent Hill. Within the Silent Hill games, probably most famous is the radio crackle in the first game. This informs the audience of when monsters approach and when you're surrounded in dense fog. This creates a lot of tension because you can't see what's coming at you. You can just hear this radio crackle getting louder and louder. This was collected by Foley artists who placed a small microphone next to a radio crackle when turned to static. The clip when it does work. This itself is used in horror games as the player is oblivious to the dangers that is coming next. However, as much as Silent Hill is surrounded by a fog environment, the radio crackle is needed to add tension. By adding this radio crackle, this adds the scary atmosphere of the game mixed with the NPC enemy footsteps as the player advances throughout the level. Project Zero. Now, the Project Zero games are completely opposite to most horror games. There's no intrinsic sound or extrinsic sound used. The only sound used is footsteps and the screams of ghosts in the distance. This makes it more scary because you're advancing through the game with just a camera and you cannot see what's approaching you. Music. This is more common in Resident Evil games as the use of grand orchestra to try and symbolise when a boss